So rich rising, beautiful people. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome to the Conscious Creations YouTube channel. My name is Tisha, and Conscious Creations is a company that makes all sorts of body products using nature, from body butters to fragrances, hand sanitizer, face wash, shampoo, hair serum. Actually, I use we have a hair serum that I use to retwist my locks called Abundance is My Birthright. And so that we carry the spectrum of products, because what you put on your skin matters, because it is absorbed into your body, into your bloodstream, and because you are important and you matter, we want to make sure to give you what is going to not be harmful to you, not knowingly harmful to you. So with that being said, I want to make this video today to talk to y'all about seeds. And not just seeds in terms, well, let me say this. It can mean many things, right? We can talk about many things, but to not make the video too long, I'm not going to go that much in depth with everything that we can talk about when it comes to seeds. But what are seeds? And today what I have for y'all, pumpkin seeds, because I believe in show and tell. So seeds, as we know, are the foundation. Look at me spitting out pumpkin seeds. Seeds are the foundation of new life, new creation. So whether we are talking about the seeds of a pumpkin that when planted can grow and produce another pumpkin, or we're talking about seeds being your genetic material that you can plant into a womb and create a new human being. Either way, we're talking about the same thing, because we're talking about giving our seeds, first planting our seeds and allowing those seeds to grow. And I want to talk to you guys about this from the perspective of investment. We talk a lot in society about getting rich, getting wealthy, but what does that mean? What does that mean? And why does it seem like only certain people can be rich or wealthy, right? Follow me here. So when you plant a seed, you plant the seed, like for example, when I plant these pumpkin seeds, if I plant these pumpkin seeds, we know that it's going to produce a pumpkin, right? But when you plant a seed, you have to nurture the seed. It requires sun. Most plants, there's some that don't require as much sun, but generally speaking, because the sun gives nutrients and gives information to everything that's growing on this earth, including you. It gives you information to help you to grow. Thank you, Spirit, for that, because that literally just came to me in terms of the way that it impacts us, giving us information to help us grow. But anyway, so you give the seeds the information that it needs to grow. So you give it, you plant it in, generally you plant it in the soil. Most seeds require being planted in the soil. Now, let's start there. Because again, when we plant these seeds, we're literally burying or planting the seeds in soil. And we give it what it needs to grow. So we give it water. We may feed it, we may feed it potassium depending on the soil. We may feed it, whatever sort of minerals that it needs. We give it that, because each seed needs something different to grow. Now I have a garden. I know I told you guys about my fig tree. So I have a garden that I plant different things. And so the thing that I realized, some things they did not survive, because I was treating them all the same. I was treating every single thing that was growing like it just needed water and sun, right? But some things will burn in the sun. They too much sun will kill certain plants and certain fruit and vegetables, right? So you have to know what it is that you're planting and what it requires in order for it to thrive, in order for it to grow and to become its highest and fullest potential. Now, when it comes to pumpkin seeds are very high in magnesium. And the thing about magnesium is every single cell in your body needs magnesium in order to function properly. So if those of you who may have experienced or know someone that does experience chronic pain, one of the primary deficiencies in folks with chronic pain is magnesium deficiency, because your body literally needs it, from your brain to your nerve endings. Every single functioning in your body needs magnesium, right? Now, why don't we eat more seeds? Why don't we eat more seeds, generally speaking? Why isn't that something that, specifically in the Black community, why don't we talk about eating more seeds? You know, we talk about, we have, certain cultural norms that we follow, but we don't really talk about the importance of things like eating seeds. And this is why I make these videos, because just like many of you, that's how I grew up. That's how I was raised. Like, there were certain things that I was raised on that I didn't know, right? And generally it's because our families didn't know, our parents didn't know some of the different ways to add to who we already were becoming, what our diets should look like, or, to give us something that is well balanced. Because, and I know I'm kind of going off on tangents here and there, but follow me, I'm going somewhere with this. So I grew up in the 80s, right? And if any of y'all who grew up in the 80s, you knew what was Saturday morning? Cartoons and cereal in front of the refrigerator. In front of the television. That was Saturday morning. They called them Saturday morning cartoons. And so, today I was I'm sitting here meditating, and I was thinking about this, and I'm like, when you're a kid, all you're thinking about is what it is that's fun to you. Of course it's fun. Of course it's fun. To sit, like me and my Frosted Flakes and Fruit Loops, yes. Yes to all of that. Every Saturday. Yes, indeed. Actually, every day. Sitting in front of the television, eating my cereal. But now, of course, being an adult, I look back at that in hindsight, and here's the thing, and I just want to be clear about this. This isn't, blaming my mom or anything. This is not that conversation, right? I'm looking at things from the perspective of now an adult, fully grown, now realizing some of the effects of some of these things that happened when we were younger, and trying to steer folks in a different direction now that we have the data to show the impacts of some of these things. Because sometimes we don't know the impacts of things until many years later, right? But one of the things that I realized is that sugar has this effect on the brain, and that it creates a constant craving. So, if y'all have kids, that you give kids cereal, they are bouncing off the walls, right? But then you sit them in front of a television, looking and participating in a television program. What is happening? What is happening in real time? They are consuming sugar, which is addictive. We know that, right? So they're consuming an addictive substance, and they are being programmed, right? Through the television program. They're being programmed as they are consuming. And so if y'all remember, Saturday morning cartoons is where all the companies, I remember like the Toys R Us commercials, and I remember like we sat in front of the television, and all these commercials for things that kids would then later ask their parents for, right? This is how it worked. You sit your kids in front of the television, they're eating cereal, or eating cereal, and all of a sudden all these advertisements for all these great toys come on. And so now what you're doing is as you're consuming this addictive sugar, and you're being programmed with information about I want, it's reaffirming what you're already receiving. So it's literally, as you're consuming, and you're consuming with your eyes, you're consuming with your ears, it's literally programming our children to become consumers with a never-ending addictive cycle of want. It's never enough. I want, right? And then what happens is these kids grow up. Hello. These kids grow up to become us. We're here, right? To become us. And one of the things that I know that I dealt with growing up, and I didn't know, I did not know what it was until I knew what it was. When I was younger, I was told that I dealt with or suffered, I was diagnosed with anxiety. I was diagnosed with depression. I was diagnosed with attention deficit disorder. Ended up on, or let me say this, I was on various medications for these things. And I had chronic yeast infections, right? And this was I remember this like in high school. And it's funny because I remember I didn't know what was going on with my body because, you don't know what you don't know, right? So I remember going to my French teacher, Miss Sidman. Shout out to Miss Sidman. I remember going to my French teacher and I was just telling her, I was a kid, I didn't know. I was just telling her what was going on with me. And she said to me, it sounds like you have something called candida. And I'm like, what is that? And then later I found out that, I was suffering from chronic yeast infections. So the pH in my body was just kind of all over the place. Like, but all of these things affect not only the mental body, but the physical body, of course. And it's this addiction to, it's this addictive quality that, for me, what I noticed, that made it hard for me to focus because I required constant stimuli. Because that had literally been programmed into my genetic structure, into my DNA, because I was being programmed by the television and programmed by the food. Because again, everything, and y'all hear me talk about this on this channel, everything is information. It's informing the cells to do something, right? It's programming the cells to do something. So as you are sensing things with your five senses, or with all of your sensory perceptions, as you're sensing things, it is affecting your genetic structure. It's affecting every single molecule in your body, and it's producing something. Now, this is where we go back and we talk about these seeds, because these seeds are being nurtured. These seeds are being watered. These seeds are receiving information that is informing how they grow and what they grow up to be. Now, they may have started out as a pumpkin seed, but you keep watering it and fertilizing it and, giving it whatever it is that you give it, and it may not be the pumpkin that you initially planted, right? Now, will it be a pumpkin? Yes, because it is what it is. But it may not be a thriving pumpkin. You follow what I'm saying? It may be a pumpkin that needs some extra assistance, right? It may require different things because of the information that's been fed to the pumpkin, right? You hear me, pumpkins? So what I would say, and again, this is looking back at my own childhood and looking back at all of the struggles that I had growing up as a result of not knowing what sugar would do over time. This is why I make these videos. So if you are experiencing things like anxiety, depression, addictive personality, if you are having, and most people are in this day and age having a very difficult time focusing. This is why we have like 30-second videos, because people can't focus, because people can't focus. And I really liken that to, years and years and years and years and years of feeding people addictive substances and then getting them addicted to the substance. And then it's hard to then break that habit once it's been embedded into the DNA. But I want to state this: it's not impossible. It's not impossible. I made an Instagram post. If y'all check out the Conscious Creations Instagram at Conscious Creations, consciouscreations.live on Instagram. I made a post the other day about what's called an amygdala hijack. And the amygdala is the part of your brain that controls your emotional responses. So, for example, when the amygdala of the brain is hijacked, what ends up happening is say for instance you experience something or you hear about something, it can trigger, right? It can trigger a response that is disproportionate to the initial stressor, right? So basically it can make you overreact. So this is where I think about, these situations when we talk about, like on social media, people talk about Karens, right? When, people are behaving in ways that are disproportionate to whatever the stimuli is. Sometimes what's happening is the amygdala of the brain has been hijacked by something, by whatever it may be. And so it's time, folks, to get back, to take back your plane, the plane of your own consciousness, the plane of your own consciousness, from whatever may have hijacked your plane, to take that back. And one of the ways that you can do this is by feeding your brain things that are going to be life-affirming, things that are going to actually produce something other than stress, other than trauma, other than repeated patterns that have not benefited you, right? Because what happens is that when it sometimes I think too fast, and my mind is working faster than what my mouth could actually say. But I'm working on this. Why I eat pumpkin seeds, right? Because I'm telling y'all, this is something that I've dealt with, that I have learned over time that helps. So y'all are seeing this happen in real time. But in your brain, you have neural networks. And I think about neural networks like the neural networks of trees, right? Because the thing about trees is that they operate on a network. And I've told you guys this before, where the roots of the trees, they're communicating with one another. Like, we don't see it, right? But it's the original Wi-Fi. They are literally communicating with one another underground. So there's roots that from each of these trees, there are roots that are growing underground that are communicating with one another. And so your brain is like a neural network. It's a network of cells, right, inside your brain. And cells, because they're fluid, they can be programmed like fluid, like water. I talked to you guys about programming your water. But these cells can be programmed because they are receiving information. They're receiving coding. They are being coded with information. And when you have a thought, that thought then can produce an action. That action, if done repeatedly, produces a pattern, which produces a habit, right? And those habits end up forming your what becomes your reality. And so what I am saying is the way that we can change our reality, the way that we can change the reality of our children, is by being mindful of what we are putting into their garden, because they are fertile, just like you are fertile. Your mind is fertile. Your mind is a garden. And so they talk about, I think there's a book called like The Constant Gardener. I've never read it, but it makes sense to me. Just but it's constantly tending your garden. And when you have children, you are charged with making sure that their little garden is tended as well. That they are receiving all of the information and what it is that they need for the plants that are in their mind, the trees and everything that's in their mind that is beautiful and life affirming, to make sure that those things are growing in their minds. But with these neural networks, if we change the information that the network is receiving, it changes the output, right? Input, output. So if we change if we change the sugary cereal to something like a seed or nuts and things like that, fruit, those things are they're alive, right? They're alive, and so they produce something different than the neurosis, that we have grown accustomed to in this society. We've grown so accustomed to just being busy, all over the place. And I know, because I've been there, and I have to work through that myself when it comes up. And so feeding your seeds, feeding yourself seeds can change the information that you are receiving to reprogram your neural network. Because all it takes is walking a different path in your mind, right? This is how you change your thought patterns. When you change your thoughts, because thoughts become things, we make thoughts manifest. We bring it from the spiritual into the physical manifestation of what it is that we are creating in our mind. But if we are creating from a broken foundation, right, then what we are going to produce is going to reflect, right, the seed that was planted. It's going to look like the seed. Now, it may look a little bit different, like I said, depending on what you feed it and all that kind of stuff, but it's going to resemble what you planted. And so I want to encourage you all to plant seeds of life into your soil, because your soil is fertile. Your mind is fertile, and it's always receiving information. So this applies to you, this applies to your babies, because if we're talking about, we talk about building generational wealth, we talk about legacy, we talk about investing, but you are the first thing that you need to invest in. You are. Because if you are not here, and how can you give what you don't have, right? So I'm speaking about investing in yourself and investing in the richness of your own soil. Your soil is rich. It is rich. We have been made to externalize our wealth. Now, I do believe that external wealth is or can be a reflection of internal wealth. But what I'm simply stating is we're looking at it, or we've been trained to look at it backwards. We've been programmed to look at it backwards, to chase, right? To chase money, to chase wealth, to chase riches, as opposed to being, realizing that it starts with you, that you are the wealth. Invest in yourself. Invest in your health. Invest in your future. Invest in your children. Invest in you by giving yourself the opportunity the opportunity to grow well, the opportunity to be the best version of yourself. And being able to sit. I realize that most people can't sit, like I said, for periods of time. And it's still something that like I said, this is something that I am constantly working to make sure I maintain myself as I'm saying this to you all. But being able to sit just out in nature, just truly being able to sit out in nature, receive the information, receive